do want to mention we are going to have a Q&A at the very end, so stick around for that. And then, Randy, if you could just introduce yourself and then take it away.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate all of you for being here at 6 o'clock on a Thursday night. So my name's Randy. I actually used to be the former membership director for AIGA Austin from a few years ago. But AIGA has always been like a part of my life. I got my start in a student chapter as well, back in Arizona at a place called Northern Arizona University. This is probably about 2006, 2007. So I think it's awesome that all of y'all are here because like community is really important, especially for designers and especially in the horrible year of our Lord 2020, which I think is still going on. And that's actually why I am here. So I don't really have like formal slides or anything. And so for everyone here, kind of like treat this as like, I don't know, we're all sitting around a big circle just talking to each other. So if someone wants to speak up, there's a whole raise hand sort of thing. And Kimberly already left, which is great. That happens. I'm sure it was just an error, but yeah, feel free to like raise hand, ask questions whenever. So to kind of start with, I came to Austin roughly 7-8 years ago to be a designer at IBM. IBM had just started their design push to build a massive design organization that would work across the company. At the time, IBM was something like 400,000 people, and there was maybe 80 designers here in Austin. I was pulled in as one of those to be a senior designer, and I spent roughly 6 years working all throughout every aspect of being an IBM, primarily as a user experience design lead, but also in roles including design facilitation, design management. I've helped out the hiring process. I helped create part of the hiring process back in the day. I worked with, any of you know, Owen Hammonds, who has been closely tied to AIGA Austin. Him and I work closely together on many different things, including AIGA. Last year, like many people, I was part of a structured layoff. So in the big world of tech, when it just happens. It's a thing where, there's a billion reasons why, and you will never know what the actual reason is. I still don't know why I was put on the chopping block, but last June, I was on that block. I found myself without a job for the first time in 6 years. And I was kind of like, well, what do I do? How do I reinvent myself? How do I, survive? And so through a series of just like self-examinations, the building of several executions of a portfolio, and then also one of the things that drew me to this crowd is executions of a resume. That plus probably over 100 applications, all of which I tracked in Excel, which I can probably, not in Excel, I tracked in Sheets because I'm a modern person. No, not saying Excel is not for modern people, but I tracked 102 various interviews, and I eventually landed a role, actually a contract role through Aquint. I am a principal UX designer at PayPal. What I do for my day-to-day, I own the customer support organization from a design perspective, and slowly building that up. So to kind of start and go back in time, when I was laid off, it sucked. It was, it sucked. There's no way around that. I think, you probably see a lot of your colleagues on Twitter or whatever be like, I'm going to learn like 15 new hobbies during the pandemic. I did not. I read a lot of books, I played a lot of video games, and I applied. So let me just, I'm going to share my screen so that y'all can see all the things that I talked about. Let's see here. Select window or screen. Yeah, the entire screen. I got nothing to hide. All right, cool. Oh, and it seems like Alexa just wants to talk in the background. So also don't mind, at any point during this call, there may be a cat that shows up as well. So just know that a cat may jump on me. So the first thing that I did when I was released from IBM, I had the privilege of being able to take advantage of some resources that came out of my severance package. One of those resources was what was called a Berkman report, and that was a cat attempting to jump on the table and taking out a puzzle. Sorry about that loud noise. So this this is what's called a Berkman report. And if you have the ability, let me know if I'm still sharing screen, if it's still there. I just maximized it. The idea of what this report is, and you may want to go and pursue a report like this to kind of understand, but it does cost some money. Anyway, what this report does is it helps you understand you and helps you understand the things that you want out of a job. And so you can kind of do this on your own. If you've exposed yourself to any kind of design thinking sort of stuff, you can easily do this by just like putting some post-it notes up on the wall and kind of thinking about, okay, well, who am I? What do I want to do? What do I like? What do I don't like? That's really what this kind of report does. And so from this report, I actually learned a lot about, things that I knew about myself already, but also some things that I didn't actually know. So I know that I'm thoughtful and reflective. I didn't think I was optimistic because I tend to be a bit of a realist, and I don't necessarily think that like being a realist and an optimist are kind of the same thing, but apparently I am. I am apparently competitive, which I was not aware of, but I am enthusiastic and I'm assertive. And so what these things did is it started making me think about the hunt and thinking about what are the roles that I want to go after, where are the places that I want to work. I just spent 6 years working at IBM, and like, while you could generalize that and just be like, you worked in tech, the reality is like, I worked in cloud data storage. I worked in mobile technologies. I worked in AI technologies, and I worked in healthcare. And so, kind of thinking about what are the things that I actually enjoyed? What are the verticals that I enjoyed? And so, I know y'all, a number of you are about to graduate, and so these are the kind of things that you should be thinking about too. Don't just think to yourself, I'm going to go and get a design job. When I first entered the workforce as a designer in 2007, I got a job at a print shop in Flagstaff, Arizona. At the time, my dreams were I was going to become an awesome poster designer and do design work for bands, even though I had never touched a screen printer in my life. We didn't have those at my school, but ultimately I ended up falling into the world of user experience, and I ended up liking it because it's all systems thinking, and I love thinking about systems. Um, you know, this kind of report, thinking about it now, it really helps me kind of think about like, what are the roles that I want at a job? I'm at a point in my career now where, yes, I can sit back and just work on mockups all day, but 3 days into it, I'm probably going to get kind of bored. I need variety in my work, and I need like strategy in my work. I have a background where I care a lot about the business, and so I look at what the business strategy is and try to look at like, how does that actually tie back to user needs? Because if you look at, say, consumer packaged product design for like the last, I don't know, 70 years, that obviously they've made a correlation between the design of a package along with the user need. That's why Tide is so successful. Even though you could just go buy normal laundry detergent from HEB, you kind of want Tide because it looks better, it feels better, it might smell better, but I digress. So, with all of this in hand, I started to look at companies that I wanted to go look at. And so this is that spreadsheet. I don't think I showed this the last time I talked about this stuff, but this is where I started tracking everything. So a big part of it was kind of breaking out, okay, obviously the company, and then honestly referrals. I think in terms of like trying to find a job, um, who you know is certainly important. there may be some of you out there that think that you're going to be awesome and your portfolio is going to get you into the door. You should use every available option that you have. If you know someone that works at an agency that you appreciate, talk to that person, find out something about the agency, find out about the work, find out who are the people in charge, and then see if they can give you a referral, even if they're not hiring. It's really good to just like meet recruiters. So I get a lot of recruiters in my LinkedIn inbox like every day. It gets kind of maddening sometimes, especially considering how the world is right now. But I always make a point to respond back and just say, like, even if I'm not looking, just to say, hey, thank you, please keep me in your address book. That is super valuable to do. Even if the job that they're hitting you up for is obviously not aligned to your needs or desires. So as I went through, I did a lot of like searching through job boards. There's various UX job boards that I used, and through that, this is where like I started just trying to track everything. So Amazon has so many different listings, and you can bulk apply. And so, but that didn't necessarily work out for me, as you can tell. I didn't hear anything from those for the most part, except for a few roles that I didn't get through. But doing this, it helped give me like a sense of what was actually like kind of happening in our industry. And it's definitely changed now. I think as we get into the end of Q2, there's a lot of places that are hiring. Back last year at the end of summer, the roles were few and far between. And a lot of the roles that I was looking at my point in my career is I'm looking for senior roles like design director, principal designer, things like that, senior managers. And those are kind of hard to come across. Yeah, for example, Gene Sys, they're a cloud software company, and I was just deemed too senior after the third interview, which honestly, that was nice. Something that you'll notice here is under feedback given, there's a lot of no's. And just know that now that when a company refuses you, they probably won't give you feedback. Don't let that get you down. Companies won't accept you for a variety of reasons. Either, it could be something like Anaconda, they're another software company. Their role was just far too senior. That's why it's green, because I made the choice to say no. But Disco is a financial services cloud company. They said I didn't have enough visual design evidence in my portfolio. Great, thank you. Better than hearing nothing. And like that's a thing that pill just to swallow now. If you want feedback on your work, get it from your peers. You can get it from the people around you. You can get it from the colleagues in your room. There's a great AIGA Slack. There's Slacks for Figma. There's Slacks for design systems. Those are all places that go get feedback from. But yeah, ultimately there are just stuff that's out of your control. So like, for example, Schwab, I was in talks with them for a few different things, and then they had a reorg. They had no more headcount. Nothing I can control. So, doing this kind of thing and tracking it, I suggest that for all of you as well. Just so like also you can keep track of like who you've talked to, because there's 104 entries in here. I mean, I'm looking at it now, and this is the first time I've actually looked at this in several months, and it astounds me how many interviews that I went through, and just conversations and things like that. Now, how I got to that point. So first off, there's always a website. And when I talk about portfolio, there's a few different things here. And you may not like what I have to say, but you need to have a website in order to give a teaser of your work. Your website is not a portfolio. Your website shows work and shows process. That's why I call it a temporary portfolio and process. Ta-da emoji. Because what you want to do with this is like when you get into a pipeline, a recruiter may see this for maybe 5 minutes. What's more important is like they look at your resume. And so you need this thing to kind of give like hints of what you've done. So a project I worked for at IBM, my role was design strategy, design thinking, research, design ops, and user experience design. And that's kind of like in order of importance of what I did. And so when your portfolio piece, this web thing, lands on the desk of, say, like a creative director or like a design manager, there's several things that you need to hit with this. You need to talk about, I talked about the opportunity because obviously it's a business project. I talked about the solution. I talked about the impact. A lot of work I've seen in portfolios, you don't really put in the impact, and that's something that's going to be very necessary, especially as designers, as we evolve our practice, along with like your collaboration. No designer is an island. If there's a designer that tells you they've done anything, they're probably lying to you. Every design project has a group of people behind it. In this case, it was 2 UX designers, 2 other researchers, a visual designer, along with like a 15-person development team and a 10-person product management team. Those are all people that I got to collaborate with. Same thing when it comes to, say, even my old work. So back in 2008 through 2013, I worked for U-Haul, the moving company. I worked there as I started as a large format print designer, and I moved into the world of user experience, but it's kind of the same thing. Talking about who you worked with and what you went for. But that work is very old now. So then it kind of comes to like when you're looking for jobs, let's talk about the resume pieces. So I'm going to show you a resume that will make some of you scream, and that's okay. But there's a reason for this. So this is like your standard Word doc, your Word doc screen sort of resume. And I worked with a resume service to create this. And when I was first working with the resume people, I was kind of standoffish because I had been trained that a proper resume is going to be something like this one, where it's been designed. There's attention paid to typography, to the layout. There's maybe some nice colors involved. There's a grid system. When I worked with a resume person, they told me that when you apply to a job, your resume goes into an automated system that's looking for keywords. If it doesn't hit those keywords, it just gets kicked out. You don't get a response. I realize that that's probably been the thing that's happened to me for decades, because I've always had the pretty, gorgeous PDF that I would print on nice paper and bring. So you got to have both. You got to have the nice one for when you go into the office. And believe me, as soon as we are all vaccinated up, we're all going to be going back to design offices, and we're all going to be conducting interviews in person. But you also need this to get into the system, especially if you're looking to get a role in, say, technology, your IBMs, your Apples, your Microsofts, your PayPals. You need to realize like their hiring pipeline is not just designers, it's also engineers, it's sellers, it's product managers, it's all these other people. And what's great is like, even like your smaller companies, they're going to have an HR person, and the HR person's going to be able to understand this more. They're going to be able to understand that Randy's a productive, results-driven design expert who's looking for a principal UX role. Great. And then they can scan it and say, okay, oh, design thinking, I've heard of that. That's been needed. Oh, a design system. I've been told that we're building that. Ah, he's got skills in interviewing and storytelling and presentation. Great. This is a good person to put forward. Also, having more than one page, you can have 2 pages, that's totally fine. Some people I've listened to some people say that you should only have a 1-page resume. As a person who has scored several jobs off of a 2-page resume, I think there's a little bit of like to that sort of 1-page thing. You know, if you are, say, like a new designer and you don't have a lot of projects that are like that demonstrate impact for a business or a big client, toss in some side project work. It's really good. As a person who's been in the role of looking for people to hire, I love seeing that side project work because it gives me some sense of who you are as a person. So in my case, I helped create a pirate radio station that operated at IBM. It was a project focused on community building and a project that was focused, a little bit on, learning how to do audio broadcasting and, screwing around a little bit. But it was mainly about like, how do we build a platform and encourage people to use a platform? It was not my job. It was the night job. And like, that's why it's there. So if you have a night job where you're like, maybe making posters for friends or doing flyers, things like that. Maybe you are donating work to a political cause, put it in here. It's all important. So then let's say, as we go back to my Excel spreadsheet, someone's interested in me. Okay. Aquint. Oh, I did the screen. So that's the screeners where you do that 30-minute phone call where you basically get like, and I just did one today actually, where you get maybe like 20 minutes to talk about yourself. And then the recruiter asks you some very pointed questions. And what they're doing is they're just trying to find like fit with the organization. And that's kind of driven by what headcount they have. It's driven somewhat by culture, but a lot of it is very much like by the numbers. So in the case that I had today, the recruiter is looking for mid-level designers. They definitely identified that I did not fit that. And she was like, still, let's talk because it's important to just talk to you anyway and put you into the system. And if a role opens up for you, that might be something that we can pursue in the future. So like when you get that screener call, just breathe and just be like, I can do this. I can just talk because it's not as big of a deal as you may think that it is. The second interview. So when companies pull you in for your second, third, and fourth, a lot of that is about assessing your abilities and assessing your fit. By fit, what it should mean is like, are you going to be able to work out really well alongside all the people that are around you? I disagree with the idea of fit because I think it's a lot of confirmation bias. I actually like working with a variety of individuals that come from a variety of backgrounds, that have a variety of attitudes, because like that helps create a better creative environment in my mind. Unfortunately, not every company feels that way. But yeah, just something to keep in mind when you're in your interviews is that you're being evaluated on your skills, but then also on who you are. So, if you, and I've done this a billion times, if I come across a little nervous or something like that, I will throw my hands around and look all like, I'm really excitable. And that can be a turnoff. So when I landed this, the thing that I tried to figure out was how do I tailor my resume for the organization? And so I'll just do a little search and I'll show you. Not my resume, my portfolio. So with my portfolio, I basically had a large portfolio followed up by some smaller ones. And so you can see here, there's an FB one here. And I'll just kind of pull that up. So I built out specific portfolio files for my interviews. So I went through the interview process for Facebook. Let's not dive down that because I don't like Facebook as a company, but I was at a point where it was like any port in a storm, I'll take the job. But I wanted to make sure that I looked at the organization and thought about what does the organization do and what do they want? Facebook, social media, they want to see projects that are complicated, but they also want to see projects that affect people. So in this case, the way how I built this portfolio is I could go in and turn on and turn off projects. So you can see the closed files here are projects that I turned off. My portfolio consisted of 4 main projects that I felt comfortable kind of switching in between, depending on who it was. So this was a project where I wanted to show that I could work with a team within the time constraints of a month in a completely different location, and to be able to leverage what I had around me in order to build a piece of software. This is where a project, I worked with the state of Utah to do such a thing. This project was demonstrating how I could work under a time crunch with technology that we didn't know what to do. A group of friends and I reverse engineered Watson to build a South by Southwest experience. This is the example of leading design strategy all the way to design product and shipping it out the door. And so the thing I showed you online, the website, that was just like the teaser. And, just for giggles, we'll go back. And this is very quick to get through. Very small opportunity, really quick on the solution, what my contributions were, and then some screenshots that kind of showed off oh, hey, look, we did a workshop. Oh, we made slides. And what this tells the person who's quickly looking at your online portfolio is that, oh, they're capable of doing these things. Great. This portfolio, when you have your interview, this is the one that proves that you can do it. This is where it is more complicated. It's more descriptive. This is where you need to be, when you think about your work, think about all the steps that you took. If you're in a group project, think about including a slide that discusses the emotions of everyone on the team, how you balance that out. Because this is where you will get 45 minutes to present your work in a way that really talks about you and your skills and how you handle things. This gives the people in the room the sense of okay, is this going to be a good person to have on the team? Are they going to be able to work with our partners? I was chosen for the PayPal role because I am very good at working across the different groups within an organization. I'm able to pull in my product people and understand why they need the ship features. I can also pull in the developers and kind of say, oh, well, what can we actually build? What do you know what to build? And I know how to talk to the business people that kind of say, how much money do we stand to lose or win? I was able to convey that in this work, which is not what you go to design school for. and that's okay. I think a lot of what we learn in design school is some of the basics. And what you need to do is just build upon those basics. And that helps build out your practice of who and what you are. For example, I didn't learn anything about how to use agile technologies inside of design school. When I was in design school, it was okay, we're going to learn about typography and we're going to learn about Adobe. And this is oh, I learned how to use Jira to build out stories, assign points to them, and then make sure that my colleagues were also comfortable in this environment as well and tracking their work, all so that we can prove our value to our stakeholders. That has nothing to do with design, but it has everything to do with design because we're in a weird industry that requires us to do that kind of stuff. So by understanding my time limits of what I could do, I picked out 2 projects for this one for Facebook. For PayPal, I think I did the same too. Yeah, I did the same too. And this is also where my advice to you is when you build a portfolio like this, practice on everyone. Get your friends in the room, practice on them. Get people that you probably have friends that aren't designers, present to them. Because if the work that you've done makes sense to someone who's not a designer, you are doing the right thing, because you're able to talk about a complicated, confusing project in a way that a normal person will understand. And they'll be in the words of my parents, oh, is that what you do? So keep that in mind. And I chose these two projects. Actually, I chose these three projects because I was able to. Yeah, I did personality and I did IBM radio, um, which was great. It was like when you do that presentation, um, my advice to you is have a lot of water with you and take dramatic pauses. Uh, Earlier in the call, and just right now, I said the word Um, I just did it again. It's not because you are at a loss of words. It's because your brain is moving faster than your mouth can operate. And that's okay. Take time, take breaths. It's okay. It's your work. You know everything about your work. And yeah, after that, it then turned into, quite frankly, a discussion about payment and negotiation. Um, and I'm just going to stop sharing because that's just, I don't need to share anymore. But to kind of talk about that part, negotiation, think about if you have a job right now and if you want to go to another job, a good rule of thumb is don't go unless you get 25% more. So it's really good for you. Like if you're working hourly, go use like an hourly to salary calculator. There's a bunch if you just Google it. And then you kind of say, okay, well, 25% more of that equals this. And be confident about saying that because, damn it, you are worth it. You are most certainly worth it. I know a lot of designers, and myself included, where we have imposter syndrome. And it's just like, oh, I'm probably not that good. There's other people that are better. And it's like, you are not your work. You are you. And so that's the thing that's being like thought of when you go and interview is a lot of it is just about you. Don't feel weird about tools. So I came in the PayPal knowing obviously Adobe tools and Sketch, but then right when I got in, they were like, hey, in 3 months, we're switching to Figma. And so had to learn Figma, but also I got to learn it with everyone else around me, which is great because my manager, he's terrible at it and he's hilariously bad. And it's great because we all feel like we can laugh and like he jokes about, it's very funny. He's maybe like 3 years older than me, but he's like, I'm the old man because he's got 3 kids. And it's just like, listen, it's all software. It's going to change again in like 2 years, right? So yeah, don't let that stuff kind of get to you. Just be open and just be like, yeah, I can learn all sorts of technologies. I learned how to use Jira and I learned how to use Trello and I learned how to use GitHub. All of these things, it's all breadcrumbs. But yeah, so I guess like that's all I had to show. I think it'd be great for us just to have a conversation for this last, what is it, 12 some odd minutes? Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for that. That was really helpful. And then, yeah, let's just open it up to a Q&A, or if anyone has any comments, that's cool too.
Maria, you are going in and out for me. I don't know about anyone else. I did see that Liz raised a hand. No. No, I kept up my LinkedIn. So that'll be one thing. Like LinkedIn was really easy to keep up and just keep updated as I went through my time in IBM. And if you look at my LinkedIn and like I can share screen to kind of show you all my LinkedIn and I could talk through the evolution of that. Yeah, I was definitely thrown for a loop. Boop, boop, boop. Cool. Okay, let's go to mine. So in here, boom, IBM. So this thing, you look at it now and it's like 3 listings: senior UX designer, design strategist, UX design strategy. This used to be 6 things. And so just like constantly over time, just like always evolving, figuring out better ways to write the complicated stuff and just try to make it quicker. Now, granted, each one kind of opens up, and this is also where a bit of strategy comes into play. This is where you can throw in your side projects that you've done within a company. You can toss in, things that you additionally did. Like, once again, the stuff that like we did as designers, but we weren't like, it's not something like a designer would do. Where it was like, I noticed that like product design didn't talk to marketing, and then marketing was like putting purple on all of the advertising. And I was like, there's no purple in the product. What are you doing? And they're like, well, we just think it looks nice. What? Like, no, let's work together and kind of say like, let's work together. That's not a design thing, but I threw it in LinkedIn. So yeah, when I was laid off that weekend, and it was, of course they did it on a 3-day weekend where they're like, yeah, take the 3-day weekend, relax. No, I busted ass. I got the V1 of that portfolio kind of set in a weekend. And then I had a group of 5 people that was like my inner circle that I sent it to. So before I applied to any job, and this comes from in my past, I have done things as silly as I've copy pasted the same cover letter to like 30 companies. I spray painted gold a portfolio package and sent it through the United States Postal Service to a design firm in San Francisco. I'm a friend of the guy that I sent it to now. He doesn't even remember getting it. Like, I've made weird errors in my past, and so yeah, like, take your time, show it to people, because odds are there's things that you've put in there that don't need to be in there. And also, like, if you have a friend who's really good at grammar and writing, grab them. Like, everyone needs a good editor in their life. Next question. I saw like a hand got digitally raised. 2 hands now. I think Alexandra, I think you were first.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. How do you see the industry changing after this pandemic? Is getting worse, it's getting better. And now, do you think today is more about to become a developer too, or depends on the job right now. Do you think it's better to be both?
If you can do both, then by all means, go do it. There's a lot of companies that need people that can do both. My advice so yes, 2 things. I'll answer the second one first because it's a bit easier. If you're going to get into a tech job, just learn rudimentary, like understand how software is built. You don't need to go out and learn code. If you want to learn code, that is power to you. I used to be super knowledgeable in HTML and CSS and jQuery, and then like I lost all of those skills. But if you can do it, like totally go and do it. When you work on like product design, like I do, there's usually people that do that job. But if you have an understanding of how backend technology works, that's great. Like if you know what the software architecture, and it's very easy to learn about how software architecture works and operates. It's very similar to information architecture. That will help you immensely because you'll be able to work with a developer, and like when they talk about how they need to connect these databases, that you'll be like, oh, so it's like I took this Lego block and I can plug in this Lego block and now it works. And they're like, oh, great. You understand how engineering works. That is super valuable. So to your first question, the pandemic has really messed up like everything. Like that goes without saying. A lot of companies have realized that we can all work remotely. And do it successfully. Not every company feels that way. I have friends in Arizona that work in-house design jobs that are being told they need to go into work. I also have friends who are at Google that have been told, stay at home. So I think, yeah, it really comes down to where you want to go. So like my friend in Phoenix, she works at a women-focused fitness company. They're not a tech company. They are not a design company. They are a company that has some in-house designers. they're not going to quite get that. But I think like a lot of your larger companies are going to be really cool with working wherever you are. Like today, I had a phone call with Atlassian, and they were like, "Are you in the Bay Area?" And I was like, "No, I'm not in the Bay Area. You kidding me?" Like costly. And so I think that's a good thing. But I do think that like I see a lot more roles opening up. I think the thing that I think is tough right now, and it's always been tough, is there's not a lot of entry level roles. And so I think that's where like getting relationships with recruiters will help with that. Because if you get a relationship with a recruiter, they will reach out when the proper role opens up. So my conversation today with Atlassian, they were like, yeah, I'm looking for mid-level designers. You're clearly not a mid-level designer, but I'll keep you in mind for when something opens up. Just because there's not a role open up at a company that you like doesn't mean you shouldn't approach them. Like if you want to go work at Spotify and they don't have any like entry level positions open, hit them up anyway, because a recruiter will read your email. So
Okay.
yeah,
It's about networking then. Networking.
Yeah, curate that garden. It's like a garden of just people. Like, and like also like don't make your life about like responding to everything on LinkedIn and stuff. Like this is a weird year. And like it's still a weird year. So I think a lot of people are respective of that. Like there are people I haven't like they sent me a message 3 weeks ago and I responded to them yesterday. And they were like, "Oh, thank you for responding." And I'm like, I'm apologetic. I'm like, "I'm sorry. You reached out 3 weeks ago. I feel like a jerk." And they're like, "No, it's okay. It's okay." And so, I think like something that's come up is like, I think we're all getting a bit more honest and open with each other, considering that we're all stuck at home and we can only see each other through screens. Though that is slowly getting better. But yeah, I think it's getting better. So yeah, build those relationships.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much.
Totally. Also, I love your like avatar. It's just glasses, sunglasses, just chill it out in the corner.
And a crazy cat.
I was like, I love it. It's great. Okay, there's Cameron and Andrea. I don't know who was first, but maybe like, I don't know, internet fight for the opportunity to speak. I don't know.
I guess I'll go ahead. I agree with Rebecca D in the comments that your portfolio demo was extremely helpful, and I was curious about if that would be tailored differently for a junior role. Would your advice for someone entering a junior role be identical to your own journey in portfolio ideation, or are there any differences that we can unpack for someone trying to get those junior roles?
So I would say for like a junior portfolio, you've probably done a bunch of group projects. Like talk about the emotions that happened in the group project. Like, I think that'd be a great slide where it's like, I have slides where I can talk about making financial impact. Like you get to spend more time focused on like individually, like what skills you're able to sharpen and how that worked with other people in a team. I think that is like, I wish that I had that notion back in 2007. Because in 2007, like my portfolio class was basically pick out 10 projects that you've done and just make them better. Good luck. There was like nothing else to it. And so when I went into the job market, I was like clueless. That's where it was like I was copy pasting the send cover letter to like I hit up like Creative Hot List and it was like every single posting. It was like, oh, Columbus, Ohio, sure, I'll go work there. I don't care. I'm just gonna send these emails. And I think like from like the junior perspective, like if I had known about like your portfolio is more about story, I think it would have ended up a lot different for me back then, because everything back then was just like images. And it's like, I didn't talk at all about like my role in the project, who I worked with, what we were even trying to do. And I think back and there was like one project where I worked on a wine label and like the class project was wine labels. However, a person in my group actually knew a winery and they needed labels. And so we made labels for the actual winery. Oh my God, that's client work? Had no idea. Like, if I could go back in time and redo that story, it would have been about like, oh, we had a class project, but then it turned into like a real life project with real like consequences. Like, oh shit, does my label work well enough to sell their wine? And then like realizing that, oh, there is like so many regulations against what you can actually put on a label. And like, I think like, yeah, dig into your work and find those stories, because there's a lot of like really cool aspects about being able to do student work. You have a lot of freedom that I don't think like the rest of us have. Like, I also feel like if 2007 Randy would look at now my work now, he would be like, this is all boring. What happened to all the punk work? Like aren't you supposed to be throwing ink on everything? Because I used to do stuff with like ink pens and do like crazy handwriting work. And yeah, so like I wish I could have that moment. Maybe when time travel becomes a thing, I'll like go back and just like look at that person. Anyway, next question.
Hey, this is Andrea. I'm kind of bouncing off of what Alejandro said, like kind of, so I'm going for UX design and it's my first semester, so I'm kind of open to like, you know, adding on any kind of other major that would help me. What do you think kind of goes together, or what are you seeing that's kind of seen as more valuable? Because I do like video editing on the side, and I don't know if that kind of ties into that, or if that's kind of valuable right now, or do you recommend? What do you see out there?
So there's I think for me, there's two schools of thought. I came from a background where I wanted to be a rock and roll poster designer. So I learned all about branding. I learned about, bye John, I learned about how to like make posters and do print design and logos, and I learned all that stuff. Then I fell into doing web design work, and that actually benefited because the first sites I made for U-Haul, which I learned yesterday are still up and alive, were educational websites that went along with their illustrations on their trucks. So it was like a nice natural fit. So you could do that, taking other creative classes to help build out your tool set of creative things. There are plenty of teams that like eventually need someone that knows video work. In IBM, my team for the project that I showed you all, there was a moment where the product people were like, hey, we need a demo video. Does anyone know how to make a demo video? I was like, I know my way around Premiere. And boom, suddenly it was like myself and another designer, we were filming like physical stuff in like a room on like iPhones and then putting it into a product demo with like graphics. And it was like our first time touching like After Effects also. And so those skills will totally come in handy. If you want to take like courses that will be a complement to user experience design, anything involving research, a little bit of psychology helps. Those are definitely things that could really go in there if you want to get like on the geeky side of UX and looking at like statistics and numbers, because that is becoming that's always been a part of user experience design, is like looking at metrics. That could also help you too. But yeah, it depends on like where you really want to go. Like I also went to a very unique program for my master's degree where I learned all about business. I learned about psychology. I learned about history. I learned about physiology, learned finance. I learned how to read the market. And that all played into being a better user experience designer somehow, which is crazy because like I would not have thought that like learning how to read an annual report would matter as a user experience designer, but it helped me like better understand what the company is doing and why we're doing it and how my work is important. So that stuff's great too. Like I actually, every designer should take like one business course, like MBA 101. Like take an MBA 101 class. Don't go get an MBA unless you really want to. But a 101 class will give you a heads up, because like UX isn't just about building really great wireframes and prototyping experiences and tying it all back to user needs. Like it's also about just like understanding why you're all doing what you're doing. and your business people will actually adore you for it. Especially like, and you know, you might be like me and sometimes teach them some things too. Like that happened today where I just asked one of my product partners, I'm like, this looks like a business use case, doesn't it? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, what do you think? How much money do you think we would spend on this? And so she's like sitting there like being like, this designer is somehow talking to me about business. What? And like, that's not what they expect. Some people that I've worked with in PayPal just expect us to make wireframes, and that's not true at all. Like, you can help shape the business too.
Thank you so much.
Totally. Thank you. Who's left? Any other thoughts, or is everyone just brain soup right now?
So that's why we are very valuable then. We should charge valuable amount of money because we are very valuable. We still valuable, or is the trending is falling?
No, you should. Yeah. I think user experience design is always going to be valuable. It's very funny. Like, I fell into this career and I tried to get out. Like, the whole point of me going to New York to get an advanced degree was because as a UX designer, I'd gotten burned out. I was upset with the system, that the system was like, Randy, you're a designer, so you need to just design. And I was like, F that, I'm going to get into strategy. And I went and I learned everything about strategy. And then I ended up getting another job as a UX designer, but it was far more fulfilling the second time around. And so like that part is still kind of blowing my mind that like, yeah, like I may be a UX designer, but I also do all this other stuff. And at the end of the day, it just makes me a designer. So yes, this is a career path that will continue to be valuable. And I think like it's really about the tools that you get and how you leverage those tools into your various workplace environments, work that you want to do. Like, I have a friend in Portland who is a brilliant design researcher. He leveraged his work into understanding the food market and like what kind of like online food services were available. And he noticed that there was nothing serving up Indian food or like Indian cuisine, Indian recipes. So he started a spice company. And now his spice company is turning into, now he's making recipes and he's like doing like videos, and it's just slowly growing. But like, he's a design researcher by trade, but like he's been able to leverage his skills in research and design into building a business. So yeah, it's valuable one way or another.
So how do you consider somebody as a unicorn in your field? A unicorn?
I mean, if you're a true unicorn that you can do everything, like, yeah, you're awesome and deserve all the money. For me, like, I know a lot about visual design work. I can make, lots of nice things, but I'm not a pro. Like, there are people that I know who are amazing UI designers. But I've met a few people who are, unicorns. But, that name does really mean something. It means that they're rare to find. For me, like, yeah, there's obviously skill sets that I don't have that I wish I had. Like, I'm learning more and more about motion graphics. But yeah, if you're a unicorn, please like charge $100 an hour. You'll probably be fine.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Totally.
I have one question. So what are your favorite ways that like people have presented their portfolios? Because I know, of course, you got to have the website, right?
Right.
And so, but I also saw you using Keynote.
Yep.
And I was thinking like, okay, and then of course like Behance that people use to do storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what are other like ways that people can, or other softwares people can use to convey those portfolios?
I mean, like, there's obviously the big ones, Keynote, Power. I've seen presentation. I mean, obviously a part of business. So as much as we all love Keynote, no one in business does. So learn PowerPoint. I know it sucks. You just got to learn it. But like, yeah, PowerPoint's there. But like, I've also, I've been lucky enough to have been around like physical portfolio demonstrations where someone actually brought like a book I I really appreciate that. Like if someone goes to that level, it doesn't make me change my opinion of who they are as a designer. I appreciate it, but like if there's a person that's got a portfolio that is a laptop, that it's just their laptop that they brought in, versus a person that brought in like a bound book, it just depends on the work that's inside. So like whatever tool you use, great, use it, but the work inside is what's important. I think a good rule of note is if your portfolio site looks a lot better than the work that's in it, you're doing something wrong. Like I have seen beautiful, like great work that was like tucked inside of a zip file. Like there was no portfolio website. It was a zip file full of projects, but like best damn researcher I've ever seen. So like keep that in mind. Like it's all about the work that's on the inside. Even if like, I don't know, what if like the power goes out when you're presenting? Like, what are you gonna do? Grab like some Sharpies and like a board and start talking? You could do that. Like a lot of that portfolio presentation stuff, like another thing is like when portfolio presentation, so back in IBM, when we would bring in people for the portfolio demonstration, we had already seen their work. The work had been vetted by like 6 other designers. The presentation was more about just like you and how you handle yourself. Which, yeah, it was very funny because I used to tell people that. They'd be like, oh, should I focus on this part of my book? And I'm like, no, just be yourself because that's why you're here. I'm like, I've seen your work like 4 times. I don't need to see it anymore. You're great.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally. I have 25% of my battery left. We can keep going.
All right, well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Can you guys hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay. So again, Randy, thank you so much for joining us and being here and presenting all that with us.
Yeah.
I think I speak for everyone when I say that now as we're nearing graduation and then the semester, we'll definitely find ourselves using your advice.
Feel free to reach out too. Also, like I'm on LinkedIn, reach out through LinkedIn. Yeah, willing to help out, answer questions. I can help.
Perfect. And then just another reminder for everyone that's still here, just go ahead and email me if you're interested in joining the board. I hope everybody is. And then, like I said, just anytime before April 30th, we'll hold our vote. Then until then, hopefully we'll see y'all again in the next event.
Cool. Thanks for having me. Y'all are amazing. Like y'all are gonna get into this crazy career of design, and trust me, it's no linear path. It's all squirrely paths. So keep that in mind. Remember, you are a great person. So just always kind of keep that in mind.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Great. Thank you so much for the information.
Of course. Anything to help out. Yeah, I didn't have opportunities like this when I was back in school. So I'm glad. But yeah, reach out on LinkedIn. I'll be around. So